I've been looking forward to this episode for a long time. Coming up, it's time to resurrect some of the greatest hits of the rock era that were actually huge hits in their time, but for some reason, they've been somewhat forgotten in modern times. I'm going to prove why these songs deserve the Stranger Things treatment, meaning a renaissance in pop culture, including a rock song that a legendary rock singer brought to his band. They were a huge band. He was crestfallen when the band leader rejected the song outright, said it wasn't good enough. So the singer put it out as a solo song, and it actually outsold the band's next album by a long shot. Sweet Revenge. And then there's a song that everybody knows by heart, but nobody can remember the band who played it, the band name. It was their only big hit, came from a stripper. How about the band that had 13 hits in a short time, and years later they can't even tour under their own name because a bunch of imposters own it, even though none of them are original members. The songs in this episode, they share one astonishing link. They were monster hits that faded from the cultural spotlight, seldom landing in TV, film, or social media, and it's time to change that. We'll see if you agree with me. Let's do it. Hey, music junkies, Professor Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember playing electronic football back in the day, and remember these sounds, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. I know you'll find something to dig on this channel. Check the box so you know when our stuff comes out. So we've done episodes like this before, digging up hidden gems from past decades. But today we're flipping the script a bit. We're spotlighting 8 massive hits that were all huge in their day. They were top 10 smashes, yet somehow barely show up in pop culture or TV or soundtracks. They don't get much radio play anymore as well. They're all great though. I guess you could think of it as the Renaissance treatment for songs that deserve a second life, kind of like Running Up That Hill or Don't Stop Believin' had because of Stranger Things and Glee. And now they're huge. It's our great 8 today. Man, I'm telling you, if today's songs were used in film or TV, imagine the new wave of fans they'd find. Let's jump in and rebuild these overlooked classics for a fresh playlist. All right, coming in at number 8 on our Renaissance playlist of largely forgotten hits, I've got Phil Collins, and probably his most heart-wrenching vocal, Throwing It All Away with Genesis. The phrase, throwing it all away, that flowed from Phil Collins' vocal warm-ups, a play out of placeholder lyrics that Mike Rutherford heard as No Son of Mine. That misheard lyric birthed a central theme for the song. Someone is cast aside, abandoned, and left to grapple with rejection, and of course they would use that song title years later for another big hit for them. The emotional charge of throwing it all away comes from, the sense of being pushed away despite deep commitment, a feeling many of us recognize in our relationships or even our careers or a string of bad luck that we're having. The moment when the world feels inverted, things are turning upside down. And man, Phil Collins captures that universal ache of watching the life you built tilt and falter so perfectly in The Bridge. Oh man, when he says, I watch the world turn around and see mine turn it upside down. So much emotion in this song. This song is so good. Oh, just in verse after verse after verse, Phil Collins turns heartache into a direct, throat-tightening question. I mean, this one hits you right in the heart. The question, who will illuminate the darkness? Who will hold your hand? Who will offer answers when you're lost? It's that ache. Someone steadfast, then unexpectedly indifferent. That resonates with a broad audience. The fear of being left to navigate a familiar, once protected bond all alone. And I would argue the key to this song is the music. They let the music breathe. When they get into the chorus, they don't immediately go into the vocal. They let this music bed play. And that music bed is so powerful. And then when he says, we're throwing it all away, and then he lets the music bed just swell right there after that and then sings again, that's the part that just grabs you. Besides his incredible vocal, Throwing It All Away was built around a cool, contemplative guitar riff by Mike Rutherford. Big hit for Genesis in 1986, rising to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the AC and mainstream rock chart together. It's a very cinematic song, and man, it could be used perfectly in the right scenario. Like I said, it stands side by side with Phil's other heartbreaking performance, Against All Odds, Take a Look at Me Now. This song gets me every time. They need to use it. All right, coming into number 7 on our Renaissance Overlooked Hits Countdown, I've got a true rock classic from one of the best rock voices ever. Right there with Steve Perry when he was at his peak, Midnight Blue by Lou Gramm.
Midnight Blue.
There's a lot of substance in Lou Gramm's solo smash Midnight Blue, including wisdom imparted from his father, and also a message to Mick Jones, his partner with Foreigner, that he often butted heads with. I actually spoke with Lou Gramm about the story surrounding Midnight Blue and how Mick had actually rejected the song that he offered to Foreigner, Lou did. And here's what he told me about it.
Yeah, I had it in mind for a solo album, but I thought my solo album was still a ways away, you know. Bruce and I came to a Foreigner rehearsal, and I told Mick I had an idea, and so Bruce on acoustic guitar and me just singing. That's all it was. Or we played him the demo, which was electric, and then we played him the song acoustically, so he could actually hear everything, you know.
Be a shame, 'cause I'm the one who can feel the sun right in the port.
He had a funny look on his face, you know, and I wasn't sure if he liked it or disliked it. Then he asked Bruce to show him the chords, you know, because Bruce also is very good at chord inversions, just like Mick. Mick was trying to figure out Bruce's chord inversions, and he got them, but when he started playing the riff over and over again, he changed it to something that he liked. And for me, that blew it for me because as usual, he wouldn't take my idea verbatim. He had to mess with it, you know.
Yeah, that's true. When my following days are over, now I just gotta.
He monkeyed around with it, and it didn't sound like Midnight Blue anymore. So I kind of just sat there, and he looked at me. He goes, "I don't know, Lou. I don't know if that's a good song for us." And I was relieved.
It was during the time that you were doing Inside Information. I Don't Want to Live Without You was, you know, one of the singles. And I mean, good song, but again, ballad.
I don't wanna live without you.
This could have been Tony Bennett or Frank Sinatra.
Yeah. It didn't sound like the Foreigner of the past, but Midnight Blue is bigger than any of the singles off of Inside Information. That's the one people remember is Midnight Blue. So Foreigner rejected it, and it ended up hitting number 1 on the rock charts and top 5 pop and outdoing all the songs on Foreigner's next album. And it was the most played song of 1987, which was Sweet Revenge for sure. All right, before we get into number 6, make sure to pick up your Vintage Years Collection shirt. We've got a deal running all through the month, through the holidays. You can get it at the link right here or below. We're celebrating a great year in music, and we're going to do more as we continue this. All right, coming in at number 6, we have a stellar song that truly needs more love. January of 1981, Styx released a single that deserves a renaissance, if nothing else for its potent nostalgic sentiment. Talking about The Best of Times by Styx. Best of Times was written by Dennis DeYoung and was crafted at the centerpiece of Styx's Paradise Theater album, concept sparked by the mood surrounding the 1980 U.S. presidential election between incumbent Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan, along with the collective anxiety many Americans felt at that time. Seems that people are always more on edge at the dawn of a new decade or, an election year. And fragments of the melody of The Best of Times bookend the Paradise Theater LP beautifully, grounding the work in a sense of memory and longing from start to finish. That's why it's one of my favorite Styx albums.
Tonight's the night we'll make history.
The lyrics arrived from Dennis as he sought to understand what helps people endure upheaval, what holds us steady when the world shifts. He came to the conclusion that love is the sustaining force. In The Best of Times, the song's narrator finds refuge by retreating inward. drawing the shades and seeking the safety and trust of someone that he loves. In that intimate, protective embrace, the storm outside is momentarily held at bay.
When people lock their doors and hide inside.
Now, the recording of The Best of Times fueled deep internal tensions for Styx at the time, primarily a creative clash between preference for theatrical pop-leaning ballads, more Broadway-esque, and then Tommy Shaw and James Young's push for harder rock tracks, leading to friction over the album's direction. This would ultimately contribute to the band's initial breakup, though The Best of Times was a contractual obligation to the band's label A&M Records that wanted more ballads like the mega hit Babe, which hit #1 a few years previous. When you look back at the music video for The Best of Times, it's funny because Tommy Shaw looks like he'd rather be getting his teeth drilled than be in that particular video. He said some similar things behind the scenes as rumors flew about his feelings about, some of Dennis's songs, especially this one and later Mr. Roboto. He has that get me out of here look around the 3-minute and 10-second mark.
I wish the summer wind could bring back paradise.
The Best of Times, though, is a dual threat for a pop culture resurrection as a reflection of a fun time in life, nostalgia, or as a feel-good montage in a TV or movie. It could be so perfect. It got a great reaction during the pandemic when Dennis DeYoung sang it at home, a home version of it.
Tonight's the night we'll make history.
I mean, to my knowledge, the only film that this song was used in was kind of an embarrassing scene with Jason Sudeikis in Hall Pass in 2011. Other than that, it's been completely overlooked, though. The song was one of the biggest for Styx, climbing all the way to #3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and holding that spot for 4 weeks. It's also a #1 single in Canada.
Everything's alright.
All right, coming in at #5, I've got Golden Earring with Twilight Zone. Now, this song isn't the obvious TV series-inspired tell people assume that it is. In fact, George Koyman from the band was deeply moved by a different piece of fiction altogether. It was Robert Ludlum's The Bourne Identity. He cites a line about existing in a twilight zone while trying to quit drinking as the spark for the song's mood. The lyrics unfold the dark ballet of an espionage operative's first kill, precarious contacts, gnawing guilt, and looming doom, building to that stark confrontation line when the bullet hits the bone. Now, that line alone makes the song really, truly a badass choice for placement in a cool crime drama, and I don't know why they haven't used it. The track unfolds like a mini cinematic thriller, a double-cross saga where death feels imminent. Narrative perfectly matched by its iconic MTV-era video, which really helped it. That visual storytelling paired with relentless album rock airplay propelled Twilight Zone into an improbable comeback success for the Dutch band in the US. You gotta remember, Golden Earring hadn't had a hit in the States for 10 years. They had Radar Love, and that peaked at #13 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1973. That was their only hit at that point. This remains Golden Earring's sole top 10 hit on the Billboard Hot 100, cresting at #10 and stamping the song as a lasting adrenaline-fueled highlight of their career. It helped them get rid of the one-hit wonder tag they had for almost a decade, from the last time with Radar Love. I do have to recognize that Twilight Zone was used as the theme music for the Twilight Zone pinball machine that was part of the Bally Midway Super Pin arcade series in the 80s, if anybody remembers that. But that was kind of a blip on the cultural radar. They need to use it in something coming up. Such a great song. All right, coming in at #4, I got She's a Beauty by The Tubes.
Step right up and don't be shy.
This is one of those classic 80s songs that was a huge hit. Everybody knows it by heart. They sing along when it comes on, but nobody has any idea who the band is that sings it. It was The Tubes. So as it happened, their flamboyant frontman Fee Waybill was wandering through San Francisco's red light district when he spotted a phone booth-esque kiosk with a flashing sign that said, I can't say one of these words, I have to spell it, pay $1 and talk to a NAKED girl, right? Isn't it so funny that we can't say these words, even though it's like documentary style here? Anyway, talk to a girl that's not wearing any clothes. Anyway, I hope I don't get in trouble for that one. Jeez. All right, he shelled out $1, and another buck because he just wanted to talk to this girl. He kept shelling out money, and he actually offered her a job in one of their music videos. He was actually really wanting to have her in the music video. But what happened on the other end was frustratingly impersonal. The woman on the line acted like they'd never met, and then the session ended and they never saw her again. But the stripper gave him an idea for their only hit, a song about distance, detachment, and desire. When it came time to record it, producer David Foster made them substitute the Naked girl for Pretty Girl. You know, this is so that radio would play it.
You get to talk to a pretty girl.
And he also brought in a couple of heavy hitters for the background vocals, and Bill Champlin from Chicago and Bobby Kimball from Toto. Well, he'd been a key member of Toto and sang the big chorus in Rosanna at that point. Most people don't realize this, but the big badass vocal in the chorus is actually Kimball. Then there's a little Canadian flavor in the mix. Prairie Prince, the Tubes drummer, notes that the phrase, "she's a beauty, eh?" That was a nod to Bob and Doug McKenzie. That colored the song's title and theme, chasing someone gorgeous who just stays out of reach. Fee and the Tubes were always doing freaky deaky stuff on stage in their live shows, so it was to be expected that they wanted the She's a Beauty video, the music video, to feel like a twisted carnival love story. Think the movie Freaks meets Sideshow Romance, complete with grotesque party people and misfits. That was their first idea.
But you can't touch the merchandise.
But the original concept for the video, MTV said no, a hard no on the treatment. The network found their original idea way too bizarre, forcing the reshaping of their vision into a more polished carnival vibe. And I say polished diplomatically. So they wound up with a clip that had Fee Waybill starring as a creepy carnival barker with Alexis Arquette, then known as Robert Arquette, playing the boy. I think it's that quirky but irresistible charm that makes She's a Beauty a good candidate for pop culture renaissance. I mean, this is such a classic song. It's one of those feel-good songs everybody loves. It could be used as a witty, punchy needle drop for scenes about irresistible attraction that's not fully reciprocal, or for a character's over-the-top carnival-fueled moment. Also, of course, a nostalgia kick back to the 80s. Or when he runs into a beautiful girl, and that could play. I mean, it could be used anywhere. She's a Beauty zigzagged to number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 and topped the mainstream rock chart back in 1983. All right, coming in at number 3, it's the second biggest hit from the biggest hard rock album of 1984, I'll Wait by Van Halen.
You got me captured, I'm under your spell.
In 1984, David Lee Roth was wrestling with lyrics and a synth-driven track for the next Van Halen record, and he famously hated synthesizers, as we know, until he did his solo career. Enter Ted Templeman, Van Halen's producer, who knew Michael McDonald from his work with the Doobie Brothers and figured a co-writer could help put this song together. So Michael McDonald joined DLR in Templeman's office, lending lyrics and melody to the already existing music, including coming up with that memorable chorus, "I'll Wait Till Your Love Comes Down." Can you imagine that, though? It's 1983, and Eddie Van Halen had just hung out with Michael Jackson playing the blazing solo on Beat It, and Michael McDonald was hanging out with Diamond Dave writing the song. Would have loved to be a fly on the wall for that exchange. The co-write was great. It was really good. The only problem is, when the album dropped, Michael McDonald's name was missing from the writing credits. Yeah, Michael didn't stay silent, nor should he have. This was really messed up. Michael pushed back, insisting on his rightful co-writing credit and royalties from the song. Legal steps followed, and the credit was eventually added to later pressings and remasters of the album. So Michael McDonald later confirmed that he did receive his royalties, noting that the song's massive success netted him more money than a later Doobie Brothers album did in a single year. He actually said, I guess they thought I was Santa Claus because I had to go chasing a little bit on that one. Now, Eddie Van Halen claimed that it was just an oversight. He actually blamed it all on Ted Templeman, saying that if Ted would have been more on top of things, it would not have happened. They would have added the credit there.
I never sent it, she wouldn't have heard.
Here's the thing, I'll Wait has a really menacing vibe to it, and DLR really makes it shine with a great vocal. It would be great for a short caption clip, tied to specific emotional beats. I mean, TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, in my opinion, could be used in campaigns about patience or resilience or long-distance relationships in any of these films, paired with brand storytelling that emphasizes loyalty and perseverance. Or it could be for a flashback scene to the 80s, or, played over something like, I imagine it could be played over the end of a really dramatic scene where we discover something as the audience. I mean, think about it. If you hear that menacing vibe coming in. I'll Wait with Help from Michael McDonald was a multi-format smash for Van Halen, going to number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 2 on the mainstream rock chart in 1984.
Look what that does to me.
All right, coming in at number 2, it's one of my favorite songs of all time and one that I'm shocked hasn't been used in anything, really. It's the heart-wrenching song, Same Old Lang Syne by Dan Fogelberg.
Met my old lover in the grocery store.
For my money, Dan Fogelberg is the purest voice in music history. The story of the chance reunion of Dan Fogelberg with an ex-girlfriend at a grocery store on Christmas Eve is well told, but it never gets old. It's such a heartwarming story. I'm shocked that it's never been worked into a screenplay as the central theme for a movie. I mean, not even a Hallmark movie. It'd be a great plot just following the song's lyrics. Famous musician goes back to his hometown and to visit his parents for Christmas. He happens to travel to the grocery store to get some Irish cream because his parents had run out. And he runs into an old high school girlfriend, or the high school girlfriend. She's unhappily married, and there's still unfinished business between them. A longing for connection made even fiercer by the holidays.
Snow was falling Christmas Eve.
I mean, this song is so detailed and so good. You can feel the awkwardness at first when they bump into each other.
She went to hug me and she spilled her purse and we laughed.
I just don't understand how a song with so much emotional impact hasn't been used. Dan expressed realism in such a beautiful way in his music, especially in Same Old Lang Syne. It's just as warm as it gets, this feeling that you have when you listen to it. Now, one lesser-known facet of the Same Old Lang Syne story is that his aching ending, the snow turning to rain as the narrator leaves his sweetheart from Woodruff High School.
Snow turned into rain.
That wasn't just poetic license there. The weather actually shifted from snow to rain on Christmas Eve as Dan Fogelberg drove home, lending another real-life layer to the song's bittersweet mood. And that feeling that he had, that pain.
Felt that old familiar pain.
The chance meeting happened at the Shortstop Food Mart on East Fry Avenue in Illinois, a detail that still anchors the story. And that very street has since been renamed Fogelberg Parkway, a living tribute that roots the song in a tangible, real-world place, just like the song. Somebody frickin' open their eyes and see that this song would be perfect for a dramatic part in a film or a series. Or really, you could just make a movie on the song. I mean, it's such a relatable story for all of us. We've all been through this. We've all run into our high school sweetheart and, man, anyway. All right, before we get into the hit song that I think is the most deserving of a pop culture renaissance, I got to give an honorable mention to a great song by Blondie, Atomic.
Atomic.
Blondie's Atomic is a quietly underappreciated track for sure. While Heart of Glass, Call Me, and One Way or Another loom large in pop culture, Atomic screams for a comeback of its very own. It definitely outperformed its reputation, hitting number 1 on the singles chart in the UK in 1980, and it still sounds so fresh today. The song's origins weave an intriguing braid, an album version drawn from the nursery rhyme Three Blind Mice. And a single version that borrows its groove from Dean Parrish's 1967 classic, I Am On My Way. They took a nursery rhyme and turned it into a great rock song. Sonically, Atomic was Blondie's ambition to fuse new wave rock and disco, building on the momentum of Heart of Glass while charting its own fearless, danceable path. It's a track that still feels slippery and filmic, ripe for reintroduction to a new generation, and somebody needs to use this sucker. All right, now it's time for us to disclose the overlooked huge hit that we feel is the most deserving of a pop culture renaissance here at Professor of Rock. Hoping you haven't heard this song in a long time, or maybe never heard it, because I want you to stream it as soon as you can so you can enjoy the intoxicating genius of Cool Change by the Little River Band.
Cool change.
This is such a feel-good song, man. As the second single from the album First Under the Wire in '79, Cool Change by Little River Band is a fascinating paradox turned hit. A raw personal cry for help that somehow leapt across oceans. Written by Glenn Chirac amid high band tension and a tense chalk and cheese dynamic with Graham Goble, the song channeled a longing for escape through sailing. Glenn actually called Cool Change his cry for help.
Sailing on the cool and bright clear water.
But rather than staying narrowly personal, Cool Change took off in the US, ascending to number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100, even though it barely flickered on the Australian charts, well, at least at first. Isn't that interesting? In time, Cool Change has come to be celebrated as a quintessential Aussie song, even helped fund Chirac's real-life sailing fervor. Glenn's haunting line, staring at the full moon like a lover, that gives me chills every time I hear it. It's truly poetry for the soul.
Staring at the full moon like a lover.
The phrase Cool Change anchors the song in a vivid Australian weather moment, a refreshing crisp front that arrives with summer heat. So the imagery feels authentic and tactile and geographically rooted. The result is a track that feels both intensely personal and broadly aspirational, a rare blend that will resonate with new listeners for sure. I mean, remember when Dreams by Fleetwood Mac had a pop culture resurgence because of that clip on TikTok, from Dogface, cruising down the road on the skateboard with, chugging the cranberry juice, and of course the song in the background and what it did for Ocean Spray. Using Cool Change as a soundtrack for a clip expressing the euphoria of freedom and tranquility of being out on the sea alone, that would be sheer perfection. The saddest part of Cool Change by the Little River Band is that none of the original members are in the band that owns the name and is touring right now. Many fans have no idea that the band that they're paying to see actually has no members from the original band that had all those hits, and they're not even from Australia. The original members can't use the name and are even shut out of the Spotify page. At least that's what Graham told me about it in an interview. Here's what he said.
There's been a lot of legal action where he's got court injunctions, prevented us from playing. He's now taken control of our Spotify page, deleted our photographs. He's deleted our bio. He's tried to have this American band make the audience believe that they're seeing the original band. He owns the name Little River Band. They perform as Little River Band. They have successfully legally got injunctions to prevent us from playing, but we are not even allowed to mention, we can't come to say we're the original we wanted to tour as the original Little River Band, but that's been legally prevented.
Well, that wraps up our episode on hit songs that are mostly forgotten, but they definitely deserve a pop culture renaissance. It's cool how many older hits have had a comeback because of clever programming, syncing, social media use, all that kind of stuff. It's really helped to further the legacy of many of these songs and artists. A great song is timeless. Sometimes all it takes is a little spark with a pop culture clip or a soundbite, and they're rediscovered and beloved by a whole new generation, and we remember them that they were great songs. And, we've heard a lot of these 70s and 80s songs way too much. Love Queen, but man, Bohemian Rhapsody, it's been overplayed. And so is Don't Stop Believin' in Africa. They're great songs, but it's time to add more to this idea. So what do you think? What are some other songs that should be resurrected, that deserve a renaissance? Let's have a great discussion below. Let's talk about your memories of these songs. Any of these songs you love, hate, whatever, let's do it. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.